Hi, I'm Summer, and I am an alcoholic and an addict, and I am beyond grateful to be here tonight. I am here with Paige. Paige, would you like to introduce yourself?
Beige alcoholic, super grateful to be here with you guys. Yeah.
All right, tonight is our first meeting, or our first group, I should say, kickoff. We're going to be doing a deep dive into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, line by line. And um, you may ask, why are we doing this meeting? Why are we digging into the big book again? And the name of this particular group is "The Spiritual Life is Not a Theory." So I just wanted to kind of take that apart really quick and look at what that means. And theory, like what a theory is, it's just a belief, it's just an idea, it's just a concept. The spiritual life that we live in AA cannot just be an idea, it cannot just be a belief. We have to live it, we have to do it, we have to go out there and take action. And it's best said, actually, if you guys have your big books with you, from now on, if you don't have your big book with you, this is one of the meetings that I would highly recommend bringing your big book with you, because what do you say, Paige? It's like a big book bounce, or what do you call it?
Big book bounce around.
Big
Yeah.
book bounce
We're gonna
around,
bounce
right?
around the big book. Heck yeah.
Yeah. We're going to do the big book bounce around. So we're going to be following from, the blank page on, but there will be many cross references. So thinking of just the title of this particular group, on page 83, the second paragraph down, "The spiritual life is not a theory, we have to live it." And that, I mean, it's very important. Like, as you get into the program, and as you start working the steps and living the steps, and it becoming a mesh and part of your life, you see that it can't just be a theory, it can't just be something that you believe, and like you pray, and that you say, and that you convey, and that you have to actually do it. I'm sure you have something to say about this, Paige. What do you think?
Absolutely. I'm a big believer is that these 12 steps are not intellectual. So I don't know
Right.
about you guys. I would show up here and I would want to intellectually pick them apart. And why that one was okay, but that step that doesn't apply to me. And like I can do some of that one, but not all of that one. And I wanted to figure it out before I did it. But here's my experience. The 12 steps are experiential. Our higher power, experiential. This whole thing is experiential. I have to take the actions to have the experience. And as Summer was saying, like, why would we go line by line? Well, this book is giving us directions on how to see whether or not I got to do this thing, but also on how to have that experience. So I should maybe figure out what those directions are. And if I got to do it, which a whole lot of fun if we do.
Mhm. Right. And I love what you said, experiential. It can't, nothing, or things in our life can't become real unless we experience it. We have to let other people and ourselves experience things. Like, I know some Steve has said, like, about the apple. You can't really experience the taste of an apple by describing it. You can't say, "Oh, that apple, it tastes so it tastes so yummy, it's so great," until you experience the crunch and the taste and all of that. It's an experiential process, right? And so that's why it's so important. It was so important to pick the title for me, in prayer, to pick this title. It was important to me for this to be the title, and it was prayed over, and it was very important to pick this title. So with that being said, not why is it, why the title, but why are we doing this meeting, like, in particular? um for me, i I wasn't able to really experience the program of Alcoholics Anonymous until I was able to really experience the big book. The big book to me is almost like it's alive, it's active, it comes alive in experiences. Every time I read it, something new pops out, something new. Like I could have read it last week and those words weren't there, but for my experience today, they're there. The words are there to speak to me, or they speak to me in a different way. Something new appears. Believe it or not, tonight I'm super, super nervous, but this book has an answer for me. This book has an answer for pretty much every single thing that I'm going through. I mean, I had a dear friend call me and lead me into uh it was in the vision for me, and it was let me see, I wrote it down, but I don't have it on me right now, but it was like, we are jittery, and but we have the power within us. We have that power. Like, don't you know that you have that power? Like, you're one man holding the book, and you have that power. And but I'm nervous, but the big book was able to speak to me and give me comfort. And so, like, that's one of the reasons I am wanting to share this big book with you all, is that the answers to a lot of our problems are within the steps. The steps bring us to God, or to our higher power, excuse me. And also, the big book has answers to just the small things and the big things and all of that. Would you agree, Paige?
Absolutely. And I knew what you're referencing. I found the page real quick. It's
Yeah.
Let's Bounce Around, because that's my shenanigans. I know we haven't even done the title page, but let's bounce around page 163, because this is what Summer's talking about. Very first paragraph, 163. Says, we know what you are thinking. You're saying to yourself, I'm jittery and alone, or I'm jittery and kicking off this big book study for the first time. Not alone. There's people here. I couldn't do that, but you can. You forget that you have just now tapped a source of power much greater than yourself. To duplicate with such backing what we have accomplished is only a matter of willingness, patience, and labor.
Beautiful. Thank you, Paige. You definitely know your way around the big book, and I am thankful for that. Thank you. So that's one of the reasons that I want to share that this big book has been it can be a comfort, and it can definitely be that for you as well. And we're gathering here at this group to communicate the message from this book, which is not always shared in meetings. It's not always communicated in the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine, whatever fellowship that we belong to, or that we affiliate with, or if we don't affiliate with, it doesn't matter. It's not always there, but it is here. And we want to learn that this is a textbook. It's to be studied, read, reread, not like a novel. We're going to read it once and then we're going to put it down. It's to be studied. And, you can study it and you can learn the words, and then you can dive deeper and dive deeper and dive deeper. And I mean, that's the magic of the big book. I mean, it's magical, it's radical, it's magical, it's beautiful. What do you have to say, Paige?
Absolutely. It's incredible. It's this way of life, and that has like, here's the thing. I'm not gonna lie and say I have better things to do on a Friday night. Let's be frank, I don't. I don't have better things to do. But I'm sure there are other people, some other hosts or co-hosts that'll be coming in the coming weeks that will have, maybe they'll have hobbies. I don't know. They'll have better things to do. We wouldn't be doing this if it didn't work. You know what I mean? I can't think of a book as a different book that doesn't work. But like, what I'm trying to say is we do this because it works, and I can speak for myself, but I think I can speak for Summer as well. There's a passion for it because of the results that have happened in our lives. And so we're hoping that we can share this with you, and this passion and this excitement and this way of life and this experience, because this is not a theory. Do you want to dive in? It's up to you.
Right. Come on in because it works. And like exactly what Paige said, like not that I have many other options on a Friday night, but I mean, there are some things that, Netflix looks pretty good sometimes, but this works. And, and I love seeing your all's faces and I love, seeing a sponsee or seeing someone's face light up when they see, just when they, after a fifth step or after even just during the steps or when they have a revelation or they see something different and like just like I never knew that and there's just an epiphany, I guess, epiphany that is just like that is never replaced. You could never ever replace that ever. And I wouldn't be anywhere but here tonight, I wouldn't. And that's what I love. And this book is, this book is the main purpose of this book, it says it, I think in the forewords um is let's see.
To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. You got it exactly right. And and that's what we're here to do. And I think when they say other alcoholics, that's the 100 talking, correct? Like that's the 100 talking about the other alcoholics because I'm another alcoholic, right? I'm because I mean I need to be shown too. So it's not me showing the other alcoholics, it's the hundreds showing us. Am I right? Okay. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
All right. So, with that being said, that's why, we're coming together on a Friday night. We're gathering in love for the big book and, to grow closer and really, to see to learn about the big book and to come together and to learn about how the big book can show us the steps and bring in us really is to have a vital spiritual experience. That's what we want from this program, and that's to get to God, right? That's what the program is all about, is to have a vital spiritual experience. Do you have anything to say about that, Paige? What a vital spiritual experience is?
Well, I think, are you good? Or do you want to start with the title page? Because I think we can tie it in if we go. I could tie it in if we go to the title page if you want. Are you ready to dive in?
Let's dive in.
Let's dive in. All right. Did you
Okay.
want to read what it says on the title page, and we'll talk about that?
Okay.
I promise I'm going to tie it in. I don't forget that Summer asked me to tie it in. I will tie it in.
Okay. All right. Alcoholics Anonymous. The story of how many, okay, so we're on the title page, everyone. Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. 4th edition is what I have.
Awesome. And it just, because I promised I'd tie it in, let me tie it in. So when it says how many thousands of men and women, and keep in mind, the first 100, it was 80, and it was dudes, and like one woman. So the and women was actually incredibly hopeful and inclusive. What men and women was an inclusive statement in 1939, because we're like, come on. But it says have recovered. And when you're asking, what does that vital spiritual experience looks like? It looks like recovered. Is it cool if I springboard off recovered, or did you want to take it? I don't want to. Cool.
Well, you springboard off of it really quick. Yes, you springboard. Yes.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So recovered, what does that mean? Often we hear recovered and maybe we think cured, or maybe we think, like I'm no longer an alcoholic. But what recovered is it means that the mental obsession, that insane thought that I have when I'm sober, just like I am today, but my illness is untreated, that thought that tells me I can drink again, that thought that tells me this time will be different, that thought that tells me nobody will ever know, that is gone. That is lifted from me. Contingent on the actions that I take today that allow me to live in that state of grace. So that is a part of the description of what the vital spiritual experience looks like. Go ahead, Summer.
Oh, I was just going to say, the word recovered have recovered from alcoholism, is, no longer thinking about putting any substance in your body. And, it's from the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. It's not cured. It's not, yeah, it's not cured. It doesn't mean that we're cured from the illness. It means that we're just exactly what Paige just said. And after discussion earlier on today, that in the big book, I mean, a lot of people have, different thoughts, and we're not going to get into that tonight. But the word recovered is mentioned in this book anywhere from 20 we don't know, but we were counting 23 to 25 times. We were counting. Do you know the exact answer, Paige? Because we were doing
I'm
some
gonna get
counting.
it in just a second. I had it in
Okay.
my brain literally 3 weeks ago and it left and I got you. So you keep going, I'll get the exact number because I am pedantic, which is a defect.
And the word recovering, which is what a lot of people were recovering, is mentioned 2 times. So but I don't think that's by mistake. I think that the word recovered is so important, because once that mental, that hopeless state of mind and body has been lifted, we have recovered. And whether it's one day, whether it's 10 days, time is of no essence. You can be recovered at any time. It doesn't matter. Thank you. Someone. Okay. 23 times and 2 times. Okay. So it doesn't matter about the time, time of being recovered, is not the issue. If you're recovered, you are recovered. The obsession has been lifted. You have had a spiritual experience. You are on a different plane. You are in a different dimension. You are operating differently. The displacements, everything has changed. And when Bill Wilson was laying in the hospital and he had a spiritual experience, the doctor walked in and Bill Wilson said, "I think I've had a like some psychological thing. I think I've had a psychic problem, or, a psychiatric break." And he said, "I think you should hold on to whatever you had, because you look like a different person. You look like a different person." And that's what we have when we have when we recover, when we have been recovered. So that's what happened. That's it. When we're recovered, and that's all I have to say on that.
And as you're talking about that with the time, and what's important, at least was important for me to understand, is it does not take long to have that spiritual experience. It does not take long to have the spiritual awakening. I don't have to wait to work the steps. I don't have to wait to feel better. If we're here today and if we're in pain, whether we're new, we've been around a while, we've been in and out for years, it does not have to take long to get well. We can work these steps, take the actions of these 12 steps very quickly and recover very quickly and feel better very quickly. And that is a message of hope, at least for somebody like me, who is very longly miserable. Long and miserable.
Yes, that is very true. A personal experience myself, when I was going through, a detox of my own. And actually, Paige, you're part of this experience. And I called you and we were talking a while back, and you were like, "All right, we'll get working, get to some amends." And I was like, "What?" Like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, or, get to some inventory. Like, and I'm like, "Wait, what?" Like, I thought you were going to tell me to lay in bed. And you're like, "No, get to some inventory, get to some work." And like, and I love that about you, because that's what it was. It was like, get to work, get to work. And it doesn't have to be slow. It can be fast, but it has to match. Like, we can't just, as, I mean, it has to, like, we have to do the work, and if we're not going to do the work, then it's not it's not going to go fast. It's not going to be a fast process. So, do you want to start? Should we cover the blank page at all? Just that I think the blank
Yeah.
page,
If you
I
want
think
to
I'm
talk,
just,
go for it. Go
I
for
think
it.
I'm,
One page away. Yeah.
yeah, just gonna say one quick thing. It's the day, it's the page before, but I just, want to say that the blank page, from what I have been taught by all of my sponsors, is that the blank page just really means how much I know up to this point. And it's like the set aside prayer was beautifully spoken to me by all my sponsors. And like we set aside everything that we think we know about the big book, that we think we know about AA, CA, DA, AAA, whatever, about everything, about alcohol, about this program, about doing the 12 steps, about what inventory looks like. I mean, how many times do we come in and having to do inventory over? And I have to look at this blank page again and say, okay, I'm going to set aside everything that I think I know about doing inventory because I've done it before. I've done it before. So I have to set this aside. I'm doing a new experience tonight. I'm doing something new. And even when I do new book studies with people, or I'm doing a new book study, I mean, this is, I'm going to be quite honest with you guys. Like, this is, one of my newest, it's my first book study. So I'm just being honest with you guys. This is my first book study. So
Oh,
you
great.
guys are part of it. But being part of another book study, when I open up my book and I am like a participant, I have to look at the blank page and I have to say, I have to set aside everything that I think I know about this book because I want a new spiritual experience. I want something new. I want something new in my heart. I want to know something new because guess what? I can't get clean on yesterday's shower. Can I? No. So I want to have something new. And one other thing about the title page, I know we did talk about um the title page quite in detail, but one thing that I wanted to just say really quickly, that when I was looking up in there's this nifty difty dictionary that comes, like it's a AA dictionary, thing. I have mine wrapped up and stuff, but it's I don't know if anyone has it without wrapping on it, but I doodle with mine and I wrap it and stuff and like craft it, but it's an AA dictionary concordance type thing. The word anonymous from the AA dictionary means undisclosed or without name. So that means that, Alcoholics Anonymous, it's without name. So you probably have something to comment on that page.
I was just talking on Tradition 12 yesterday morning, and so it's quite fresh. When we
Okay.
talk about anonymity in regards to Tradition 12 and it being the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, anonymity, while it does have some roots in confidentiality, it's far more rooted in the principle for us of humility and selfless service. And that
Okay.
it's more of that than y'all can't know my last. Oh, I didn't change my thing. Y'all can't know my last name, but don't look because it's right there. Oopsie doops. It's far more about showing up with humility and selfless service. That's what it's about. Awesome.
Okay.
And did
That's
you want
great.
to do circle and triangle?
Yes, I do. Let's do that. You want to put that up?
Absolutely, I got you.
So most of y'all probably have the fourth. Well, actually, I should not assume. I do not know what edition of the book you have. But the first three editions do have the circle and triangle within it, and the fourth edition does not. But right, I'm going to explain a little bit about what the circle and triangle means. It's very, very important to our program, to to pretty much to our program, because without one, imagine like a for lack of better, a bar stool with three with three legs. Without one, there's only two of them, and it wouldn't really hold too well, correct? And without two, it would probably teeter over completely. And even probably without one, it would probably teeter over also. But so we have the bottom, which is recovery, which is on the bottom very strategically, which is our program. Now, when people say program, they think, oh, program is the fellowship. It's all da 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 da. Oh, you're in the program of AA. Oh, how many meetings you got? The program of AA is the 12 steps. The 12 steps. The 12 steps. That's the program. And like that's the program. Okay, it's working the program. That's what it is. Okay, so the fellowship is actually the unity. So that's where we come together, and we're able to come together and share and find our, I guess, the things that we share in common, the things that we can, the things that we can share between us, and like, what's the word I'm trying to think of, Paige? Identify. That's where we can identify. And it's where the meetings are, the fellowships, and meetings are to identify sometimes, but meetings are also so we can, testify to the newcomer and let the newcomer know what the program is about and what the 12 steps is about. And then service is for the service work that we do for the program or for overall AA. And then I'm going to let and the logo was taken out, I see, in 1993. And the reason for that, I think Paige can comment on that a little bit better, and probably comment a little bit more on the circle and triangle.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I don't have all the deets and all the stuff, but what I do know is without question, Alcoholics Anonymous, phenomenal at sobering up drunks. Not so great at copyright law. And to hold on to a copyright, you have to protect it, which means you have to get involved in litigation and sue people so they don't touch your stuff. And it was decided that, hey, maybe that's not sort of in line with what we're trying to do. From my understanding, I can be wrong frequently. You can ask my sponsor about it. Frequently wrong. And there was a thing that happened to me. It really was like when I was going through a low point in my sobriety and my recovery, I wasn't really doing all of the deal, and I was miserable and I was suffering, and I got involved in doing a thing called Steel on Steel. It's Mark Houston, and not affiliated with anything, but it took me and it got me to look at the spiritual actions I was taking on a daily basis. And we would look at where were we proportionally involved in the circle and the triangle. So what was recovery looking like? Was I recovered? Do I had any outstanding amends? What was my prayer, meditation, and inventory life looking like? Did I have a sponsor? Did I have sponsees? What was I doing for my sponsees? Was I fully engaged in the 12 steps? And it makes sense that it's the base, like Summer was saying, because without that, it's just going to fall apart, because I can't stay sober without that. And the unity, where am I connecting with other AAs, and where am I, going to meetings connecting? Because it is nice to have that connection. It's nice not to do this alone. It won't keep me sober, but it's nice. It really is. And then service. Do I have a home group? And am I involved in my home group? Do I have a commitment in my home group? And I'm involved in whatever my fellowship is there of service? Am I involved in that? And so when I'm equally involved in all three sides, I have that wholeness, that circle of the program. So that's all I've got to say about that. Do we want to head over to the preface?
I think so. I do think so.
We just got a question in the chat real quick. It said, sorry, hold on. What was the title of the Mark Houston? It's called Steel on Steel. And then it's real hard when I say it because I will go swing swing. Because I always imagine, like swords, and I make sound effects because I'm very well adjusted. And if you see in the chat, Scott, he put in some information on Steel on Steel. It's life changing, and for me,
yes,
for a little old drunken crackhead like me.
yes.
So,
I've heard great things about it. Yes, it's supposed to be life changing and awesome. All right. So, I think let's move on to the preface. If you all have your big book, it's XI. So another thing I wanted to point out is a lot of people who read, okay, I'm just gonna say me. When I get a book, I don't usually read these things. Preface, forewords, appendixes, things in the back, stuff like that, contents, title, but with the big book, I found that I've learned a lot about just the big book. I've learned a lot about the history of alcoholism, Alcoholics Anonymous, about just where this all came from. And actually, some of the biggest things and like some of the most impactful things I've learned from the forewords and the preface, to be quite honest, and have led me to further research. So we don't like to skip them. We don't skip them here. So, all right. And, what one other thing I wanted to share is the big book is the second most purchased book in the world behind the Bible. Is that crazy or what? So there must be something kind of working in this book, right? Like there must be something working in this book. It must have some sort of impact. I can't think of another word. For that many people to be coming to purchase it and look into it and perhaps work through it, and then I see 122 different fellowships use the big book. I mean, it has broadened it's gone from so many, from just AA to all sorts of AAAA, this AAA, so a lot of people use the big book, and not just for recovery, I will say, for a way of life, because it is a way of life. This is a way of life that is definitely worth living. So, all right, I'm going to start with the preface, or some say the preface, whatever you want to call it. All right. This is the 4th edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. The first edition appeared in April 1939. And in the following 16 years, more than 300,000 copies went into circulation. The second edition, published in 1955, reached a total of more than 1,150,500 copies. The third edition, which came off press in 1976, achieved a circulation of approximately 19,550,000 in all formats. So basically here, the big book exploded, which means it's effective. It works. It's effective. It's effective. I mean, it's effective. It exploded. All right. So, Bill Swan says he's the president. I don't think he is, but no, not to my recollection, but because I'm going to keep reading back to the book. Okay.
Oh, and if is it cool if I point out some stuff from the first paragraph?
Absolutely. I was just going to say, Paige, please point out things.
So the very first sentence is, this is the 4th edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, we call it the big book. Keep in mind, I didn't do a lot of reading before I got here, and a book this size, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty big. But the title of the book is Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, we're not going to get to it this week, and I won't be co-facilitating the future weeks. So I'm spoiling it for the rest of, the people who are coming. The reason this is important is the fellowship. Alcoholics Anonymous got its name from the title of the book, not the other way around. The title came first. So the book is not just a fun little thing that we have on the shelf. in Alcoholics Anonymous, the whole fellowship is named after this book, which tells me this book is important. Now, when it says the first edition appeared in April 1939, and in the following 16 years, more than 300,000 copies went into circulation. So make a little note of the 300,000 copies, and we're going to pop over to the second edition real quick and do some math. This is why I'm not invited back next week. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Gonna make them do math, Page. Ugh. So let's pop over to the forward to the second edition, and it's page XV. And what we're going to do, and we're just going to grab from the second full paragraph. So it says 16 years have elapsed between our first printing of this book, which 1939, and the presentation in 1955 of our second edition. In that brief space, 16 years, Alcoholics Anonymous has mushroomed into nearly 6,000 groups whose membership is far above 150,000 recovered. Oh, there's that word again that we spent some time talking about. 150,000 recovered alcoholics. Don't worry, I will do the math for us. And that should actually frighten you. So if we have, in the years between 1939 and 1955, if what we have is 300,000 copies of this book going out to the world, and we have 150,000 recovered alcoholics, what that means is for every 2 books that went out into the world, there was 1 sober recovered member. Not every member got a book, and not every book went to a member. Some went to doctors, hospitals, religious places, like, scientists, psychologists. But what if I do some very, 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 very rough math? What that tells me is that there is about a 50% success rate when we look at those numbers. Now, hold on. What is my success rate before I come into the rooms of any 12-step fellowship? 0. Before I come here, I've got a 0% success rate. Nothing I can do has worked. Again, I don't have anything better to do on a Friday night, but I wouldn't be here. You know what I mean? And again, what's the last thing I ever try in my 12-step fellowship that I'm in? The steps. You know what I mean? I'm not going to start with that. What a crazy idea in the middle of a 12-step fellowship doing the steps. But isn't that always it's the first thing that works for somebody like me? And we're going to see, not with me, I won't be here for it, like facilitating, but we're going to see that success rate is far higher. And even when we eventually get to the how it works, we're going to see it would be rare for a person to fail who has thoroughly followed the directions in this book. So that's what I wanted to go on a little thing about on the first little doohickey. That's all.
Oh, that was perfect. Thank you. So the book exploded, and that was thank you so much. Exploded. And because this book has become the basic text, which we were talking about before, for our society, and has helped such large numbers of alcoholic men and women to recovery, there exists strong sentiment being a view, against any radical changes being made in it. So pausing there for a second, thinking about, over the years, how books change, and they change, because, times change, and making different changes, over different, different practices coming in. And I don't know, a lot of things change, but this book didn't change. This book didn't change. And there's been people fighting for this book not to change. And there's been no radical changes other than some of the stories in the back of the book that have changed just to help us see more clearly, that to create something more timely for us for it to be in our time, to be in the 2000s, and it not to be taken in the for not to be a story based in the 1950s, for it to apply to us a little bit better, the stories, but this, it doesn't change. So to me, that sounds like maybe it works. I think it might. Yeah, I think it might work. So that's like the second thing, like it works, right? What do you think, Paige?
Absolutely. And in what we've read so far, because it's hard for me not to skip ahead, so I'm going to stay where we're at.
Okay.
because this book has become the basic text. Now, you were talking earlier about how this is a textbook and it's what that means, learn, study. But you know, and again, I'm going to say, you know what a fun way is to engage with a textbook, which sounds like the biggest oxymoron. And it's like, who invited me? Is Summer. Summer invited me. So we're going to have to take this up with Summer. But the biggest oxymoron of like, how do I have fun with the textbook? Well, I run it like an experiment. Like if I was in chemistry class, right? It would give me a textbook and it would give me the information, but then it would give me some directions on how to run the experiment. And you know, that's the thing, is I can come at this skeptically. I can come at this thinking it's not going to work for me. I can think, you know, I don't know if I'm bad enough, or I think I'm not bad enough, or too bad, or this or that. I can run it as an experiment. I follow the directions to the best of my ability. Let's see what happens. And also, as Heather was talking about, we don't want, like, we're like, oh, we don't like change. Well, to be fair, most of us who end up in 12-step fellowships, there's two things we can't stand. One is things exactly as they are in this moment. That's unbearable. The other thing that we absolutely cannot stand is change. Don't we put ourselves in a bit of a pickle? You know, it's like, I can't handle either of those. But the reason, as Heather was, not Heather, sorry, I was at a different meeting ahead of time. Summer.
Everyone calls me Heather. It's okay.
Hey,
Yes.
that is a weird way to get your name wrong.
Yes.
An oddly specific way to get your name wrong. Summer. As Summer was saying, Dad, again, who invited me? Not Heather, it was Summer. The reason we're like, oh, we don't like change is because there has been something that has worked. And what we're really going to do is we get through the preface and see what has changed. I mean, of course, there's been some grammatical, like little things here and there, but what really has changed and what really has not changed. And that was alluded to. So yeah, over to you, Summer.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So now I've lost my place, but there's this. Okay.
Therefore, it's right there for the first portion of the volume.
Therefore, the first portion of this volume describing the AA recovery program has been left largely untouched. So the AA recovery program is the 12 steps, has been left largely untouched in the course of revisions made for the second, third, and fourth editions. The section called the doctor's opinion has been kept intact, just as it was originally written in 1939 by the late Dr. William D. Silkworth, our society's great medical benefactor. So, Dr. William Silkworth, our society's great medical benefactor, was the one that wrote, well, he wrote two letters, at least. He wrote two letters in the doctor's opinion that are there. He wrote many more letters, correct? But two made it into the doctor's opinion. And, you know, at first he didn't even want to sign. He didn't even want to sign for us because he was, you know, he was afraid, or I guess I would say fearful. He was fearful or frightened that, you know, it would compromise his validity as a doctor to sign, you know, on these letters in the doctor's opinion. But lo and behold, he did end up signing. And Paige, can you talk a little bit more about when he signed and what happened after that and why?
Oh, absolutely. And so turns out, and this Rob pointed this out to me. I was like, yeah, I don't know why he added his name. Yeah, his name was added because he had died. And yeah, I did. We're all learning. So his name was added because he had passed on, and they were, as this book was published. So I'll just give a brief history of who Dr. Silkworth is for those that don't know. So Dr. Silkworth was a medical doctor, and he worked at the Towns Hospital in New York City. And that hospital focused very specifically on alcoholism and drug addiction. And in his career, he worked with something like 50,000 different drug addicts and different alcoholics. And the doctor's opinion gives us a lot of diagnostic criteria for what our illness is, for what it is. And that has not changed. And so they were a little worried that this hospital, because it was a well-known hospital. It's kind of, if you think any, I don't watch a lot of TV. Again, I don't think I'm better than anyone. I don't have time. Um, my life's unmanageable. I don't make time for TV. But y'all know at like 3 a.m, those rehab commercials that'll come on. You guys know those ones? They still come on. They've got to, right? And it's like this one and that one. And they were kind of afraid this whole Alcoholics Anonymous would get associated with essentially the rehab commercial would stay, and it would get confused. And so by the time he had passed on, there was enough distance, and the rehab wasn't in the same repute. And so it was added. And one in literary convention, again, fun at this big book study. We're going to do some math. We're going to talk about chemistry. We're going to talk about literary convention. So in any sort of book that's written, if you contribute to any of the numbered pages of a book, so from 1 to the end of the book, you are considered an author. And so to leave him, adding his name, to leave him on page 1 would make him an author. And so out of the writing conventions, he got moved to the Roman numerals. So even though it is in the Roman numerals, it is super duper important. Hopefully that covered it for you, Summer.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Definitely. And I mean, Dr. William Silkworth is like basically our, one of our biggest, I mean, it's so important to Alcoholics Anonymous, so important. Without him, where would we be? I mean, among many others, where would we be without Dr. Silkworth, So there was something else I was gonna say, but okay, I missed it. All right, the second printing of the so we're at back to the book. We are on the last paragraph of XI. The second printing of the first edition added the appendix Spiritual Experience. Great appendix. In the second edition, the appendices on AA tradition, the medical view and religious view of AA, the Lasker Award, and information on how to contact AA were added. And the appendix on the Alcoholic Foundation was discontinued. But the chief change was in the section of personal stories. That was what I was talking about before. The major changes was in the personal stories that are in the back of the book to make it more relatable to us, more timely, more, that relate to us in time, and, more applicable for this time and age of when we're living, which was expanded to reflect the fellowship's growth. Bill's story, Dr. Bob's nightmare, and one other personal history from the first edition were retained intact. 3 were edited, and one of these was retitled. New versions of 2 stories were written with new titles. 30 completely new stories were added, and the story section was divided into 3 parts under the same headings that are now used. Wow, that's a mouthful, huh?
And listen, if you want the next 2 paragraphs that are talking about the same stuff, I can read those paragraphs very quickly.
I've heard you do that before.
Yeah. It's up to you. If you want me to read those ones quickly, you let me know.
Yes.
All right. In the third edition, part 1, by the way, I'm reading it quickly on purpose. So
yes, because
we're just going to summarize it at the end. So in the third edition, part 1, Pioneers of AA, was left unchanged. 9 of the stories in part 2, they stopped in time, were carried over from the second edition. 8 new stories were added. In part 3, they lost nearly all. 8 stories were retained. 5 new ones were added. This 4th edition includes the 12 concepts for world service and revises the 3 sections of personal stories as follows. 1 new story has been added to part 1, and 2 that originally appeared in part 3 have been repositioned there. 6 of the stories have been deleted. 6 of the stories in part 2 have been carried over. 11 new ones have been added and 11 taken out. Part 3 now includes 12 new stories. 8 were removed, in addition to the 2 that were transferred to part 1. Over to you, Summer.
Beautiful. So we see there was a lot of changes, adding and subtracting, and yeah. So I mean, when you see this overall page, what do you think? Like, I mean, overall, what's the consummation of that? Like, what would you
Yeah.
say?
To just make that as simple as possible.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah,
the diagnostic criteria for alcoholism has not changed.
changed, right? Same.
Absolutely. And the directions have not changed. But what has changed is the stories.
Is
And
the
the reasons
stories.
the stories have changed is we're going to see at the very end, but it's so that I can read the stories and think, yes, I drank like that. Yes, I felt like that. Yes, I experienced that. Maybe this thing could help me too. We're going to see that in the book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the 12 steps have not changed. The directions have not changed. The program has
They
not
work.
changed.
They
But these,
work.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right. So all changes made over the years in the Big Book, AA members fond nickname for this volume, so Big Book is nickname, have had the same purpose: to represent the current membership of Alcoholics Anonymous more accurately. So these changes, what I was trying to explain, and I wasn't using accurate, I was using a different word, but is to represent the current membership more accurately. That's what these stories are trying to, as they change, is to represent the fellowship and the time more accurately. Perfect wording here. And thereby to reach more alcoholics. Perfect. I just love this book. If you have a drinking problem, no one has to raise their hand. We hope that you may pause in reading one of the 42 personal stories and think, yes, that happened to me. Or, more important, yes, I've felt like that. Or, most important, yes, I believe this program can work for me too. Now, um, it's easy when we read these stories to see the differences and sometimes to see, well, I wasn't like that. So I love these last 3 lines, I guess, because when I read and when I came into some meetings and groups, it was very easy for me to see to say, I wasn't like that. Like, I didn't do things like that, or I wasn't, I didn't do that. But if you can put yourself in a position and have a perspective of maybe that happened to me, or I felt like that before, or I believe that this program can work for me, like that's a great perspective to have. And just finding one of those personal stories, or finding someone on a meeting or in a group or anything like that, like you're in a good position. Because a lot of times when we even reading the Big Book, it's like that or not we, it's like, the they and all that stuff. Then I'm like, they, like I have to say I have to say I or me, because all of a sudden the they becomes like they have the problem, and it's like not even me anymore. When it's like reading pages 60 through 63, it's like, well, they're the actor, not me. Like, I have to do this, and I have to turn some of the statements into questions, and I have to ask myself, would I do that? Is that something I would feel? Is that something, and turning the we into an I? And I just wanted to give that as a suggestion with those 3 lines. And Paige, how would
Yeah.
you like to close? What would you like to say towards that?
Oh, yeah. Just what I would say is that idea of like the first 180 members, it was a bunch of middle-aged white dudes named Bill and Bob and Bill and Bob and William and Robert. They got a couple Richards in there too. That's a joke. Some of you got that, some of you didn't. But the more people who were able to be affected by our message, that there is recovery, that women started to get sober, people who were younger started to get sober, from different backgrounds, from different races and religions, that, man, maybe I could recover too. And I love that idea. Like, yeah, that's what we're hoping, that when we read the stories, but that's also what we're hoping in the meetings. Now, as somebody who has recovered, my responsibility isn't to try to relate. My responsibility is to carry, no worries, so glad you came. My responsibility is to help those relate, to
Mhm.
share that experience, strength, and hope. So that's what I'll end on. We're a minute over, so we should maybe wrap it up. No pressure now.
Okay, right. It's 9 o'clock, and we are going to end the recording, and then we are going to stick around for questions and answers, discussion. Hold on one second.